All right, everybody. Thanks for joining in. This episode, we are. I don't know if we ever actually talked about the first one ever. I mean, I know we didn't do an episode about the first one of this one, but we're talking about a sequel to a movie, and I think we've done this before, where we've jumped right to the sequels. And this is another one where we're talking about a movie that was part of a host series. I'm not going to go out and fully say that Commander USA is a horror host, although I will say that during this particular episode of Commander USA, there was a commercial for Chud the following week on Commander USA, so I guess maybe he technically qualifies as a horror host. But we are talking about, let's see here, what is it? 1985's The Hills Have Eyes Part 2.
By Wes Craven, nonetheless. But going into Commander USA real quick, it's another Commander hosted film. And he was considered a horror host, because if you look at his films, you know, that's pretty much all he would view, he'd show and host the horror films. So yeah, he's a legitimate classic 80s horror host from cable TV. So he wasn't like on a network or anything, like, you know, or like a local channel like Svengoolie. But yeah,
which is weird because he was on like at 2:00 on Saturdays.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird. Such a weird. Well, you know, I think Svengoolie at one time, yeah, because he was on around that time, back when he first came back in 96 or 7.
Well, yeah, and he also, too, up until he had his most recent heart attack, he was on, so they would do the Saturday night show, like at 9:00 Central, and then the following week, that airing would show locally in Chicago on the U at like noon. So yeah, I guess you are right. Yeah, I guess it's not typically uncommon or horribly uncommon for them to be on. It's just so weird when you think about it, like for me, because like ever since Svengoolie moved to 7:00, I've rarely watched it unless it's been a movie like I absolutely have to see, just because it's like, well, it's 7:00. I mean, the sun's still out, and I mean, we're still eating dinner. What? I'm not going to watch a horror movie right now.
Early now. It's weird, you know, and I guess with my old man schedule, it turns out okay. I'm usually in bed by 6 anyway, or at least just laying there. But yeah, so this is a Commander USA film, and I gotta, before we get into the movie, I do have to say that I really am enjoying these Commander USA episodes. It has been so long since I've seen them. You know, when I first found him again on YouTube, because he was gone for like, I couldn't find any clips or anything of him. And when he finally started popping up, I'd watch some of his skits and whatnot. But now getting to watch a whole episode, like, you know, with all the in between the bumpers and his little gags and shtick and all that stuff, and Lefty, you know, I'm really enjoying this guy. It's like, yeah, now I remember how much fun this was as a kid watching him. I mean, you get the, like, he's got a lot of that kind of the same humor as like Svengoolie.
No, I don't get that at all.
You don't sense that?
This goes back to the Mako episode. This guy is some drunk in a bar you want to punch in the throat and just want to be like, shut up already, dude. Yeah, we get it. You're sitting over there at the end of the bar. We all see ya. You don't have to be the loudest one in the room.
Yeah, I'm totally digging the show. I'm loving it. But yeah, I remember my brother and I used to watch that every Saturday when it came on. We'd sit back and watch it and watch Chud, and that's the one that sticks out the most, because I think he played that multiple times back then. Oh gosh, all those movies. It was so much fun. And then that was like, Saturday was like horror day on the USA Network. And I think too that was like, if I'm not mistaken, TNT's Monster Vision was kind of competing with it, or maybe it came a little bit later, more towards the 90s, I think, when USA Network, when they started to maybe some of those shows weren't on it, but like Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried, that was kind of like the main horror hostage. Well, I wouldn't call him a horror host, but that he'd play a lot of horror movies in the evening. Kind of cool going back down memory lane with that. So today like you said, we're doing his hosted version of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2.
So the first thing I want to ask you, because you would be, you would probably remember this more than I do because you watched them all the time, was this what all of the edited movies that you had on tape were like? Like just like chopped up and like made zero sense unless you knew actually what was going on?
No, this one I think is there's a lot of reasons for it being like this. And yeah, this one is a little bit of a clusterfuck if you kind of dig into some of the background of this movie. And I'm winging it today. I'm just going to, mention things from the top of my head, what I know about this film. And listeners, if I'm wrong about anything, please forgive me and please comment and let us know. Like to say, hey, that asshole doesn't know anything about this movie. He's probably talking about a different movie. But from my understanding, The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 was a film that Wes Craven didn't necessarily want to do, but he had to do. I think there was some sort of studio involvement where they needed a sequel, and so he had to like throw something together really quickly and go back out to the desert and do it. And that's why there's a lot of flashback stuff in this film, is because they just didn't have enough footage to make a full cohesive film. So he used a lot of stuff from the previous film.
Well, I will say before we even really get too much into this one, and this is going to be probably very, very unpopular with a lot of our listeners, but in preparation for this one, because I hadn't seen it in a long time, I was like, oh, you know what? This would be a perfect opportunity to watch another horror host, Joe Bob Riggs, and his Shudder version, or his Shudder episode of The Hills Have Eyes from 1977. And so I watched that a couple of days before I watched this one. And the very first thing I will say is that the original Hills Have Eyes is essentially Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the desert.
I can see where you're coming from with that.
And I was like, what the fuck is this? And, it's not exactly the same movie, but it's pretty much the same movie. And you just kind of have this feeling like watching it now. And I've seen it before, and I guess I just never really picked up on it. But, man, I was like, Wes Craven is a freaking hack.
Oh my goodness!
And then,
up on Craven.
I'm not done yet. And then you start part 2, and what does part 2 start off with? Oh, a voiceover, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre again. The guy's ripping off the movie again. And then you get a little bit into the movie, and then he's all like, oh, we're going to have this brother and sister thing in this movie. So not only is he ripping off Texas Chainsaw Massacre, now he's ripping off Halloween.
Let me ask you something about this one. The original, I haven't seen the original in a long time. Do they do the opening crawl like that, or scroll, or whatever you want to say it, with the voiceover?
Nope. Not until the second one.
Okay, so yeah, that first thing I noticed as soon as that popped up, I was like, what? I mean, it's like, not only is it like a complete copy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to put that up there, but it's all formatted just like it. It ends the same way. It begins like, a group of so-and-so went here into the desert and blah, 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 and they ran across these cannibals. And then at the end, it even, they wrap it up like, the hills have eyes. It was like a complete rip from Chainsaw, which was strange that he was so like it was so obvious, you know.
I can't not watch these movies and not come away with the fact that he ripped off A Nightmare on Elm Street from somebody else. He must have stolen that idea from somebody. There's no way that this hack did not steal that idea from somebody. And I know that there's a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street brothers like, oh, fuck you guys. Watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out, 3 years before The Hills Have Eyes, and then watch The Hills Have Eyes and tell me that The Hills Have Eyes is not the same movie. Like, it is, like, identical. Like, it is crazy.
I think, so The Hills Have Eyes came out, what, like 77? Something like that?
Yep.
Okay. So Chainsaw came out, obviously, 74. And, this was, Chainsaw probably opened the door to that type of low-budget cannibal family type thing. And Hills Have Eyes, the original, there's a pretty big fan base for that. And a lot of people really like that film. And, he's, obviously, it's got our buddy Michael Berryman in it, who we had the absolute pleasure of meeting a few years back at a flashback convention. Wonderful guy. So I think that was a big one for him, like, putting him up there in the public's eye. And the sequel is like, I think it was the studios like kind of forced him to do this. And it was like one of those, you need to make a sequel to this because, that's what, it was like when the horror franchises were starting to take off, and I think they forced him to do it, and I don't think he had any money to do it either. It was like, you got to go in there and make this. So I look at it that way, and I'm like, okay, I can see that this was kind of thrown together real quickly, and it's not a particularly great movie, and for a lot of reasons. Now, one thing too about this film, I didn't know if you caught this or not, but one of its biggest criticisms that I've heard in the past is, the whole concept that they actually have dog flashbacks in this. Like that the dog's actually having flashbacks
Yep.
of the first movie. And so, I mean, that's when you're running out of ideas or you don't have enough footage. Yeah, okay, we're going to just what was the dog thinking at this time? Oh, he's having a flashback now. He's remembering this.
Well, the second one is essentially, and we've talked about this with like other sequels, Halloween 2, Jaws 2, where you watch the first one and then you watch the second one and it's kind of like just an extension of the first one where you kind of just get a little bit more of that same feeling. Whereas this one, it's almost like, and this isn't a fair comparison to the Evil Dead movies at all, because the Evil Dead movies are great, but this is almost like Evil Dead and then Evil Dead 2, where essentially Evil Dead 2 is the same story as Evil Dead, but with more money, whereas this one is The Hills Have Eyes and then The Hills Have Eyes 2. They were like, oh shit, we got to make another movie. Yeah, so let's do that, and then instead of having a family and a camper, let's put teenagers in a bus. And then let's just make the exact same fucking movie.
Yeah.
Because it has, and we talked about this with Jaws. You can't have sequels that have the exact same ending as other movies. It doesn't work. And this movie ends exactly, sorry to jump way ahead, but this movie ends exactly the same way as the first one ends. And you're just like, what? That was, wow, whatever.
Yeah, it's another thing. A big criticism I'm going to give to this film was the whole idea that the sister from the cannibal family, who was in the original, she's like, living in the hills and, wearing like a skeleton necklace and rags and all that. All of a sudden she's sort of this like kind of regular teenager. Like, oh yeah. Oh, and then like, that's the big twist. Yeah. I was part of that family. Yeah. That was me at one time. But it's all good now. I got cleaned up, and yeah, I don't like them anymore. I know that was so bizarre. Like, that's not something that wouldn't happen that way.
No, it was really, really bad. And that's where I kind of get the idea that he was watching Halloween 2 and he was like, oh, I'm going to do that. Cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to make this random character a sister of Pluto, Michael Berryman's character.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's try to tie it back to it. Yeah, it's very, very low budget. You can tell. I mean, I'm surprised they actually had enough money for the gasoline to set some of those things on fire. That's probably the biggest cost there.
Oh,
But
man.
but yeah, it's not a good film. You can, and also like you said, like where you can't really understand it. The editing's bad, all of that. I think it was a crash course film, and if you look into, because a few years back I was like really like I was really into Wes Craven, and I think it was after he passed, but I was like just watching all the interviews he had, and 'cause he's got kind of a fascinating story, like where he grew up in a very religious household, and he wasn't allowed to watch movies. He was only allowed to watch Disney movies, and he's a super educated guy, so he was reading books all the time, and he ended up going to college, and I think while in college he went and saw To Kill a Mockingbird, and that like changed his life, and he was like, wow, I love movies. I got to make movies. And he was not a horror guy. And that's kind of the interesting thing about him, is he really wasn't like into horror movies at all. But what happened was he actually got a job working with the Friday the 13th guy, Sean Cunningham, and at just a little tiny movie studio that they would, like wherever they were filming, or real low budget movies were being made, and he would be cutting the film and all of that. And anyhow, Sean Cunningham got a deal, or got an offer from a financer, like, hey, and again, people, if I'm messing this up, let me know. I'm just winging it here. So he got an offer. They said, hey, we want to do we'll give you this amount of money if you go make a horror movie. And so Sean Cunningham was like, hey, what do you think? And talked to Wes Craven, and Wes Craven's like, okay, I'll write one and direct it. And that was Last House on the Left, which is one of those movies that kind of falls in the I Spit in Your Grave category, where I don't particularly like watching it because it's just very uncomfortable to watch. It's too disturbing, but that's what made it what it was, because Craven was just able to really make an extremely disturbing film, and that's how he ended up becoming a horror guy. And then that's all they wanted was horror movies from him. So this, with The Hills Have Eyes and Part 2, were kind of based on his previous work of Last House on the Left.
Yeah, because we talked about Deadly Friend when he died, actually.
Yeah.
And that was his attempt to get away from horror, and the studio was like, no, dude, you're a horror dude. Make this into a horror movie.
Yeah, you got to do horror, especially after Freddy. I mean, once that hit, that's it. You're done. You're Freddy. That's all.
The guy's still a freaking hack.
Oh, you're going to get a lot of hate for that one.
Oh.
That's what's crazy. He's royalty.
Yeah, he's dead. What's he going to do?
But I will say that this film is it's a hard one to watch. It's a perfect horror hosted film. Kind of like the first one, in my opinion, too. I'm not like a huge Hills Have Eyes fan. But you put in a horror host to break it up a little bit, take a pee break, have a beer here and there, and some popcorn. It kind of works in that category.
Well, the thing with this one, though, is it breaks for like commercial and comes back, and then you're like, wait, what? Are you on the because I thought you guys were outside over there, and now you're in the bus.
Yeah, probably really bad editing.
Yeah, and I don't know if because I haven't seen the unedited version of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2 probably in 30 years. And so I was just kind of like, the girl's going to take a shower. Oh, wait, nope. This couple's on the bus all of a sudden. What's going on? It was just chopped up. And
Yeah,
then
it
this
wrapped up
one was
pretty bad.
weird too, because like, which maybe this is how it ended up being more than not, or maybe this one was longer than the last movie that we talked about, Mako. But there was a lot of commercial breaks during this one where it would like go to commercial break and then come back from the commercial break, but go right back to the movie rather than, there wouldn't be like a Commander USA segment in there. And so then, you wouldn't get like, because I always think of like Sven Gulli when, he'll like explain like, okay, so they were doing this, but now they're going to be doing this kind of a thing to kind of like, oh, okay, cool. To whereas, like it would just like commercial break, Pizza Hut commercial. And then, oh, we're completely doing something different than we were doing before.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's very choppy. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention too, which I thought was interesting. So, like I just said, the whole Sean Cunningham thing, where Wes Craven and him were buddies and did The Last House on the Left together. I'm like, as I'm watching Hills Have Eyes 2, I'm like, that's weird. This music sounds really familiar. It's like, this sounds like Friday the 13th. And, wouldn't you know it, it's Harry Manfredini doing the soundtrack, which it was like really heavy Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I think that's all he knows how to do.
I guess. Yeah, that old school, like, 80s Paramount Friday the 13th movies, that was it. Like, all those typical themes, and then that little, like, pin drop sound, like, or like water dripping, or, like little, that was all throughout this. And I was like, wow, yeah, this is definitely, the guy who did the Friday the 13th movies. And then also, if you noticed, the main star, did you recognize him? The guy with the dark hair and the...
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah, wasn't he from one of the Friday the 13th movies?
He was, if I'm not mistaken, he was the main squeeze in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. He was the telekinetic girl's boyfriend.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, Tina's boyfriend.
Tina's boyfriend, yep.
Cool. Yeah, I kind of recognize him because I know that's one of the things like Commander USA was like, oh, all the big names in this movie. And then it's like, the first name it mentions is like Michael Berryman. I'm like, what? Well, like 4 people know who that guy is anymore, outside of the horror community, which is weird. Like he's more recognized for, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest than he is for like horror stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
So,
I'm looking up this guy real quick just to make sure. Yeah, who we're talking about his name is Kevin Spurtus. And yes, he was in Friday the 13th, Part 7. And let's go down. It's been in a lot of crap. Let's see. Part 7 in 88. And he was in Hills Have Eyes Part 2. Yep. Same guy.
cool. Surprised that Wes Craven didn't rip off Friday the 13th in this movie at all.
Yeah, because that was 84, so there had already been like 3 or 4 Jason movies out.
Yeah.
So he was ripping it off with the soundtrack, though.
Well, that's true, yeah, so I guess we do have that. So.
Yeah, it's a complete rip.
Surprised he didn't rip off Nightmare on Elm Street.
So this came out the same year as the original Nightmare.
Well, this came out in 85.
Oh,
so
okay,
a year later. So, I mean, he definitely had time to... Oh, you know what? I'm surprised he didn't have, like, Pluto possess another character and then, like, have some, like, weird homoerotic, like, undertone to it.
You know what's funny is, though, I bet you... so this came out 85. All right, so the wheels are kind of spinning in my head. I think I kind of remember some of the background of this. I think this was finished before Nightmare on Elm Street, but it was shelved because it was what it is. You know, it's pretty shitty.
Oh yeah, so it probably got like once Nightmare on Elm Street like hit popularity, then the theater or the studio was like, oh, we got to get that movie out.
Yeah, we got to put that one out there quick. It's a Wes Craven movie. You know, he's a master of horror. You know, like how they kind of do that. So,
Man. And a hack.
oh man, I don't know. I can't agree with you with that one. But it's funny, these horror guys, though, you know, because even John Carpenter, you know, he didn't set out to be a horror director. You know, he went out, and first movie was kind of a sci-fi deal, and then the exploitation thing, and then, you know, Halloween wasn't really his idea even. It was handed to him. It was like, hey, go make this movie.
Yeah, it's
And
funny because all of these guys, like even like Sean Cunningham, like you were talking about, you know, the movies that we love, like were made by like guys that didn't want anything to do with horror. And then the guys that want to make horror were like, oh, fuck you, man. That's stupid. You making that shitty movie. I don't want to see your crappy, whatever, 1990s horror movie.
yeah, yep.
Or even the new stuff. Like, these guys that made the 2018 Halloween. Ugh. Take that and shove it up your ass.
We hit it. We hit Hills Have Eyes Part 2. We're going to have to do the original someday then, I guess. Although we kind of did it now, but I haven't seen it, so kind of did a two for one.
So I'll go ahead and I'll just say it right out the gate. I give The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, I give it a pretty hefty thumbs down.
And I totally get that, and it deserves every bit of that. I'm going to say, though, that strangely enough, I don't know if it's got to be Commander USA that's doing this to me, is he's taking these horrible movies, just like we did Mako the other, previously. Mako is just beyond terrible as a film. But for whatever reason, I sat through this one, and I sat through The Hills Have Eyes Part 2, and I was, like, entertained. You know, I mean, like, you know, it wasn't like I was, like, thinking, wow, this is a great film. I'm going to go get this on Blu-ray tomorrow. It was like, this is a pretty terrible movie, but for some reason I'm okay with it being on. You know, maybe it was the beer. That could be it too. Who knows? But so I'm going to give Commander USA his hosting and this particular film. I'm going to go ahead and give it a thumbs up.
You're insane.
It's a terrible movie. I agree with you. It's an absolutely horrible movie. There's no redeeming quality of this film. I mean, it's the story's lame. It's a retread, but unlike Zombies and its sequel, I could actually sit through this and enjoy it to some degree.